Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to build a complete web API with ASP.NET Core using the latest .NET 9. So recently, Microsoft released .NET 9 and there has been a lot of new features and exciting things in there. So in this video, we are going to build a complete web API using .NET 9. So we are going to learn about something like how to do mapping, how to do something like validations. So by the end of this video, we are going to have a complete web API. So welcome to this YouTube channel. In this YouTube channel, we talk about Agile and .NET. So if you are a fan of .NET and Agile, please do subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification button, and also send this video with others, or you can also post it on your social media so that this content will reach a lot of people for them to also benefit from this wonderful content. So let's get started. So for us to get started, let's first open our browser and search for .NET. So we can see that .NET download. Before you can work with .NET, you need to have the .NET SDK installed. So one thing about .NET is that it's cross-platform. So whether you are using Windows, Linux, Mac OS, you can install .NET. So when you come to this website, which is .NET download, you see something like this where we have .NET 9. So you can go ahead and download .NET 9 if you don't have it, and you can have both the .NET 9 and .NET 8 on your system. So don't worry about that. And when you are creating a project, you decide which one you want to use. So I already have the .NET 9 installed. It's easy, just click install. And for IDE, we are going to use Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio, you can use something like Rider, which is JetBrains IDE. Recently it's free, so you can go ahead and then download that one and use it. So but we are going to use Visual Studio. You can also use Visual Studio Code. So let's get started and create our .NET application. So what we're going to do is that you launch your your Visual Studio, and then in your Visual Studio you can then go for a template. So there is a lot of templates in this Visual Studio that you can use. So we are going to say that create a new project, and then you can see that there is a lot of template that you can choose from. We are going to choose ASP.NET Core Web API, and here we are going to give it a name. I'm going to call it .NET 9. So .NET 9 crash course. So this is what I'm going to call it, and I'm going to put it on a certain folder here on my system. So I have YouTube code and I have this here, so I'm going to put it into this folder. Okay, so the next thing is that we go ahead and hit create, and we leave everything default, but make sure that here, since you have .NET 8 and .NET 9, make sure you select the .NET 9. And one thing about .NET 9 is that it's a standard term support. It means that they are going to support it only 1 year, and then mostly .NET the long-term support, they support it 3 years. So next year November there is going to be .NET 10, which is going to be long-term support, right? So the next thing is that we go ahead and say that we want to create our ASP.NET Core Web API. So Visual Studio is going to create it for us, and now we have this here. So when you create this, make sure that you selected the controller base, because default you might have minimum API, but this what we have is a controller based web API we are going to use. So we are going to build a controller based web API, not minimum API. So this is what we have, and you see that with .NET 9 now you don't have something like Swagger default. So what .NET now is doing is that now you need to bring up a Swagger. If you want, you can use Postman. If you want, you can use anything that you think it will work for you. So default is not Swagger. So there is this map OpenAI, which is it has been introduced in .NET 9. It means that it's giving you an option. So we have our weather forecast. Let's run this application and see what we're going to see in the browser. So we are running this application, and then you see the application is running. So let me navigate to the port. So here it's running on this port, so let's go to the port and check. So open this in the browser here, and what we're going to see that right now we don't have Swagger inside. So what we can do is that, first of all, let's go and bring Swagger so that we will have something better here. So we go to NuGet, right? Let's go to NuGet and then trying to install our Swagger coming back. So we're going to see that Swagger, when we search for Swagger like this, you can search for Swagger like this, and you're going to have this ASP core .NET core, this one. You can install this one. That is what we are going to use. So you can go ahead and click install, and it's going to install that. Or if you want, you can go ahead and type this. So you can go here and put this completely, because that is what we want, so that this will filter that one for the first time. So this is what we want to use. So let's install this. So we're going to install this, and then we are going to do some configuration here. So one thing that we need to do is that we need to bring in the Swagger at the top. So we need to tell ASP.NET Core that we are going to use Swagger here. So let's go ahead and see that, okay, we want to use Swagger. So let's say Swagger builder.service, right? And then the Copilot is trying to suggest this for us. Okay, good. But in here, we need to tell this. We can do it like this, but let's go and see that no, use just Swagger UI, right? Like this, and then we do it like this. And then let's bring this one to, let's bring the Swagger app.use Swagger green. Okay, so okay, good. So we need to have these things here, and now let's run the application again. Now we have configured Swagger back. So when we go here, and now we see that Swagger in the browser, we can see that Swagger. Okay, so Swagger / index.html. So .html, something like this. And now we have Swagger back, and this is the default interface that we have in here, and you can see it's very wonderful. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go in and say that we want to install some packages which we are going to use for this. And the first packages is that we're going to install something like AutoMapper for mapping, because we are going to do mapping here. So let's go ahead and do this fast. So we're going to say that AutoMapper here, and it's going to give us AutoMapper. So no, this is not AutoMapper. So let's make sure we are typing it well. AutoMapper. Okay, so AutoMapper, right? So it's like AutoMapper, and it's going to give us this here, and I'm going to install this. So this AutoMapper helps us to do mapping. Instead of us to do manual mapping, the package will take care of that, which is easy, which I normally use it, and I highly recommend that you use that one too. The second thing we want to use is the fluent validation, which basically help us to do the validations that we are going to do here. So let's go ahead and install that one too. Okay, I already have it here. So let's install this package too. Okay, then let's try to install entity framework core for our database and the rest of migration and everything. So let's install that entity framework. Okay, so we have entity framework core, and make sure that you are choosing the version 9, right? 90. So this is this comes with the .NET 9, and let's go and install the SQL Server 2. This is a provider for us to connect to our SQL Server that we have on our local machine. So it's nice too. So then let's go for the tooling and then design 2. So let's install the tools 2 like this, and let's go and find design. We have design 2 here. Okay, and this is what we want. So now we have installed our packages. The next thing is that we need to go ahead and make sure that we have our folder structure working. So we are going to add a source. So let's go ahead and see that we have a source, and then now all our entity is going to be on a folder we call domain. So we say domain. Let's create that domain folder, and then inside the domain folder we are going to have what we call entities. So the entity basically going to represent what we are going to create. So the first thing that we are going to add here is what we call entity, right? So we have entity. We are also going to create a folder called validators, and where we are going to do some kind of validations, right? Going to put all our validation in this folder too. And then I want to create something I call construct, which are our DTOs. So construct, let's call it a construct, not a construct. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to create a product. So this API, we are creating a product API where you create a product, you delete the product, you update the product, right? And let's try to say product. So product, and then inside the products, what we want to have is very simple property, and we don't want to put a lot of properties in here. So what we're going to do is that we are going to say that we want to get first public GUI, right? So I like the GUI ID, which is that the GUI ID is a series of strings, right? It's combined, it's unique, instead of using the hint. The next thing is that we're going to say public name, so the product name that we want to create. Let's go for price. Okay, the Copilot is suggesting for us the price is also okay. We need a price, and then we need description. So when we get description, let's also check when it was created. So we say that public date time. So public date time. Okay, date. Okay, date time. Created that because we want to also check when we created the and then we say that updated that. This is what we have. So now this happens to be our models, and this is what we're going to use. So we are going to use this, and now let's go ahead and create a construct. We are also going to handle global exceptional errors. So this is a key when you are building application, and whenever errors happen, you want to catch the error somewhere. You use a global exceptional. And then with .NET 8, something was introduced what we call the exceptional handler, which is in .NET 9. It's also improved, so you can still use it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new construct called error response, which is going to represent the global exceptional handler, how we want the error structure to be. So let's go ahead and create a construct here. So we're going to call this error response. So in the error response, what we want is that we want the title, status code, and message, and that will give us a very concise information about what error is happening. So we're going to say title, right? So we want to get the error title, we want to get the message. We don't want to get this. The Copilot is doing it wrong. So the second thing that we wanted to have is public hint status code, right? So I want to call it status code, and then we have message. So this is going to represent our error structure in our code base. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to create a construct to represent how we can make a request and then also the response that we want to get. So we are saying that the construct is basically DTOs. So let's go ahead and create another construct, and then we are going to say that product. So this is going to product construct. So this is basically product. Okay, let's add s to it, so that is products, right? Okay, so the first thing that we need to have is that we're going to create a public record. So DTOs is always advisable to use record to create a product request. So this is going to be, if you want to create a product, this is what we expose to the user. This is what they need to enter: name, price, and description. And we are going to say that update. But one thing that we also wanted to have is that we want to have a product response. So these are the DTOs that we are going to have. And I also want to have something that I normally what I call API response. So the API response is also going to have it's going to set a structure on how our response should be, right? So I call it a class API response, right? So let's call it API response, and then with that we just indicate that for T, and then we say that T data, and in here we're going to have a message. So we want to have a message, so response message. So this is a message. So whatever happens, we want to get them, we can indicate a message that your request is being created, or there was an error, no product found, and all that. So now that we have all this thing in place, so it's now we have created all our business logics. We will come back and create the validators, but let's go ahead and create another folder called infrastructure, where we want to work with anything related to database. So let's go ahead and create that folder right here, and we are going to call it infrastructure. So infrastructure like this. Then inside the infrastructure we are going to have context, and what the context is going to do is that it's going to hold our database. So we're going to have context, and then inside the context too we probably want to have exceptions. So we are going to do global exception, how we can handle exception globally. So we are going to do all that. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to bring another folder exception, and then we are going to do mapping here. So this is also mapping. We can do the mapping in the domain, but we can also do it in the infrastructure folder. And this structure is a basic structure that I've put in place. If you like, you can structure it based on what you want or how your company normally structure things and all that. So if you like, you can use the clean architect and all that. We have a video coming up where we will build a complete web API from scratch using a clean architect and then event driven design. So it's going to be wonderful video. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, this YouTube channel, please do subscribe, and so that you won't miss those content. So let's go ahead and say that okay, we want to create this folder to mapping. And what we are going to do with mapping is that, you know, there is certain things in the model that we want. So you know, when you check in our entity here, we have a lot of things in there. So product, we have price, we have ID. But when you go to our construct, when we are saying that when we are creating a product, we don't enter ID, we don't enter those things. So we have those things in the model. So what we do for mapping is that we are saying that we map this construct or DTOs to the model, which is the entity we have, and they say that we want this property. We want these properties, right? So we map the property so that whenever we enter something, it will know that okay, this is part of the the model or the entity. So that's what we are going to do. So we are going to create a new class here in the mapping folder, and what we are going to do is that we are going to say that mapping profile. This is the name. Very simple. You can name it whatever you want. It's not a requirement, or it's not compulsory to name it like this. So let's go and say that mapping. And one thing that we need to do is that we need to bring in something we call profile from the AutoMapper library. So we're going to use AutoMapper here, and then we're going to create the instance of a profile. So let's go and create that. So we're going to see that public, yes, so the Copilot is doing it for us. So let's go ahead and then say that, okay, we have this profile, and then we have create, and then we are mapping them. Okay, let's bring them here. Let's generate all of them. Okay, and let's bring this from AutoMapper, and let's see what happens. So basically what is happening here is very easy. So let's go ahead and zoom this more. What is happening here is easy. What we have is that we have this mapping profile, which is our class, and we are creating an instance, and we are saying that, okay, in this mapping profile, we want to have these things inside. So what we have is that you can see that we can go ahead and make it this very simple. So okay, updates, okay, so we need to make sure to remove all this thing from it. So what we can do is that we need to make sure that we just import this direct instead of using this. So okay, good. It's trying to use this static thing, which we don't want. So let's delete this, right, and make sure to import this. I don't know why it's using static. So let's go and also make this one go back. So let's go back and then import all this thing from the construct. Okay, so let's go ahead and then install it. So now we have our mapping. This is how we do mapping. You can go ahead and do it and then set a property requirement and then trying to do some kind of validations in here, but we are not going to do the validation in here. We are going to do the validation in our validation classes, right? So this is basically how it works. So we have the product, and then we are mapping the product to the product response. So whatever property we have in the product response, we have sub of it, right? We don't have, so the product contains all the properties that we want, but in the product response we only have few of them, and then we are mapping them and say that, okay, give us the sub, right? But in the product response we have set all the product, but the one that we have sub is the create. When you are creating a product, you only enter 3 properties, but in the product we have more than 3 properties. So we want to tell the ASP.NET Core that this create property and update property is part of the model. So whenever there is a property coming from that, accept that. That is the basic concept of this, right? Okay, so now we have our mapping working. So the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to create our contest. So DB contest is what we are going to create. So very easy. We are going to say product DB contest, right? So I'm going to say product DB contest. So let's make it the D small and say product DB contest. So this is going to hold basically it's going to hold our database. So entity framework make it easier for us to have database. So what we're going to do is that we are going to say contest like that. Okay, the Copilot is doing it for us, so it's right. Let's try to install the entity framework, and let's bring this here. This is our property. I'm going to explain that one to you right now. So let's use that and make sure to delete this for now. Okay, good. So what we have is that, so now what we have is that we have this coming from entity framework core, which is trying to create an instance for us, and then what we are doing is that we are inserting this to our database. So the database name here we have is going to be product, right? So that is what we are going to use. And so you can, when you get to this point, it's very easy. So this is how you do your database. So when you have multiple models, you can then go ahead and then bring them here. But in this case, we have only one product model, which is called product. So now we are done with our database. the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new folder called service. So I'm going to create a new folder here called service, which is going to hold our service. So service. Okay. So this service, first of all, let's create an interface that will have a method that will represent all the operation that we are going to do. So we are going to do basically we are going to do cloud operations. So we create, we read, we update, and it deletes. So we are going to have a method which in the form of interface to do all this thing for us. So let's go ahead and say that we create an interface. So we click on interface and see that we are going to create iProduct. So iProduct service. Okay, let's go ahead and create iProduct. Okay, iProduct. Okay, iProduct service. So iProduct service. So we have this iProduct service here, and what we're going to do is that we're going to define all the method that we want in this. So very easy. Okay, but we are going to see task, and all of them is going to have what we call our API response. So we're going to say that our API response. So we have an API response which we declare here in the construct, which we are going to bring in here. So this one, and the reason why we are doing is that we want all the response to be a format, to come as a format of our API response, the structure. You can structure it how you want, but this is how we're going to do it here. So let's bring this one. We have our API response, so task API response, and now what we're going to do is that inside we are going to have create product response. So we're going to have our product response. So we say product response. Okay, let's okay, so let's go and bring that product response here. We already have it. So okay, product response here, because we want to first of all declare how we can get all products. So the products will come in the form of our product response. So this is it. So we have this, and now let's see. Then we say that get product by ID. So let's import all these things. Okay, and let's make sure that this one is working properly as we want. So we are getting an error that the error namespace could not be found. So for that, we need to make sure that we have to cross check. So let's go and then copy what we have in here and then bring it. So yeah, let's go and copy it for that. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here. So this is basically we getting the product by ID. So the next thing we want to do is we want to declare get all product. So get all product, and this is good. We want to also create a product. So the Copilot is trying to suggest one offer. This is good. So this is basically the interface that we have. This is the structure. So we have create product, and then we say that get all product, and then update all product. So then the one that we need to have is we delete product. So when we delete product, we also get a response. So this is basically what we want, but here it's supposed to be Boolean, right? We don't want to return a whole response coming in. So this is basically how it's supposed to. So this is the interface that we have, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to create a service. So we say that product service. So product service, we create a product service, and in here what we're going to do is that we first need to bring in the interface that we have. So let's bring the I interface and let's implement all the interface. Okay, good. So now this is the interface. This is what is going to do all the magic for us. So this is nice. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to bring in our database and AutoMapper here. So we're going to say that private read only, and then we're going to say that product DB. So product DB context, and then we then put that to a context, and then we bring in AutoMapper here too. So mapper, which is coming from the AutoMapper library. And the next thing we need to do is we need to create a constructor. So we create a constructor. For that, we generate a constructor. So now we have these things here. So the first thing is, let's arrange this one well. Okay, if the first one is we create a project, we delete. I always want to put the delete at the last part of it. So let's say delete, and so we get, and then we get by ID. So the first one is we get this before we get by ID. So let's do it like this. And how the import, let's clean this one up. So let's go and import everything here. Let's go and bring the construct instead. So we have to make sure to delete all these things. Okay, and then we have the construct imported, so we can then use that. It's make our code nice. Okay, so we have this, and that is all. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to have a situation where we want to create a product. So this is it. Okay, so we then someone is going to, or the user is going to enter something, which is the request. So now this DTO we have, which is create request, is going to be the structure. So when the user is going to create a product, they are going to enter name, price, and then description. So when you go to our construct here, this is what we want. This is what we are requesting from the user. So the first thing we are going to do is that we are going to map that into the product which we have in here. So we have this. Let's go and then use that. Okay, so now we have mapped that to this one already. And then the next thing is that when the user creates something, we want to have some we have to make sure that created at and then updated at is being instantiated. So the thing that we're going to do is that we're going to bring them and say now, and then say update now, so that whenever they create a product, we get the actual time that they created it. So after creating it, let's make this async. So we're going to make async, and we are going to do some kind of validation in the controller section, right? So we are going to write a validation to check that if the input that they are putting is right, is what we want. So the next thing is that we go and then say that we want to add this to the database. The Copilot is good. And then when we add, the next thing is that we save, right? So we say that await, and then we save the changes, context save the changes, right? So when they save the changes, the next thing is that we return a response. So we're going to say that return a new API response. Okay, so this is what we have. So this is when you create a product, we return a response. So this help us to create a product. We are mapping everything to our response, so the data is going to hold whatever the user gets, I mean the response that is coming after creating it, and this is going to set to true, success true, and then we are giving you a message that everything is created successfully. So after creating a product, you might also want to get a product. So the first thing is that get product, which you want to get all products. So this is what we're going to do. With that, we say that then we have to go to the database and check. So we say that var product, so var product, and it's an is called to await like this. So we are making this asynchronous. Okay, so when there is a product, we will fetch it, but when there is no product, we will give you empty empty object. So product here is the database name is product, and then we are going to say to, so okay, something like this. Oh, the Copilot is trying to, but so this is not what we want though. So when we get this, let's delete that and write our own code. So when we get this, we go to the database, we get all the products with to list sync. What we want to do is that if there is no product, when we go to the database, what's happened is that we then say that, okay, if product is called to null here, if the product is called to null, and we can see that, and we want to check. So let's do another check. Okay, and see that if the product count we want to count is equal to 0, what we are doing is that we then respond new response, right? But the data here is supposed to be an empty, so we're going to say the new list of products, which is kind of empty. So if there is no product, we are saying that no product found, but we are giving you empty response to know that the request went through, but there is no product inside, right? Okay, so that is it. And what if there is a product? So when there is a product, what we want to do is that, okay, if there is a product, we're going to say that return new response and then give us that product that we have, all the product we have in the database. So when there is a product, give us that product. So that's good. Okay, so now we can fetch our product. We can then also go and do the same for the ID. So which is that we're going to say var products. So this thing too, we are going through the database, but this time around the user is going to enter ID, which is going to be GUI ID. So we are checking the first default sync, right? So we don't want this. What we're going to do is that we're going to say that first default. Okay, so we want to check if the ID that the user is trying to enter exists. If exists, then go ahead and then give us the product. If not, we are going to return a message to you that that project that you are trying to fetch does not exist. So let's go ahead and say that var, if the project is null, what we do is that we are going to, so if the product that you are trying to search with the ID is scored to null, it means that there is no product. What we do is that, okay, we then return a new response, right? So let's make this async. So when there is no product, we then just that the data is going to be null, and then the request is false because it did not went through, but the product is not found. Because this is different from we getting no product. So we getting no product is that we have everything set up, but the data, there is no data in the database. But this is also ID. We are targeting a specific product. So if that specific product does not exist, it means that that product is not found, right? Else, if it's found, what if it's found? Okay, if the product is there, we return and say that's successful, we return the product, right? So this is how we do it. So now we have our service trying to fetch our product, trying to do that. So let's go to another one. In here, we want to implement something wonderful, right? We want to implement a logic where when the user go to the database and they refuse to update either name, description, we want to keep the default one. And this is something you need to do in your application. You don't need to enforce the user to update everything anytime they're supposed to do updates, right? At a point, they can decide to go and update their name, they will leave the rest. So you need to keep that one default. And this is how we do it in ASP.NET Core. The first thing is that we're going to say var product, right? So let's go to the database and check because they are going to put in ID and the request. So we are going to say that, okay, var the ID that the user is trying to put, check that one. So if the ID does not exist, we give them this message. Let's make this one to async. So if the ID that they are trying to put does not exist, let's give the API response message and tell them that the product does not exist. So now, if the product exists, this is what we're going to do. So we say that if the product that they are trying to do, right, it's not empty. So let's check here. We might not have name. Okay, so we are getting we should get error. We should have a name. Okay, so product name, and what we are getting is that name does not exist, right? So why is that we are not getting name does not exist? So if the product is not empty, it's the string is empty, keep the product name. That is what we want to do. Else, okay, so a product does not contain definition of name. So let's go to our models and check. But it contains, let's go to our construct and check. It contains, right? So why is that product does not contain definition of names, right? So why is it that we go through the product database? First default, we're checking the ID if it is no. Also, why are we getting this error? So let's check the reason why we are getting an error. So why are we getting an error? We have make this an async. So this is an async. Okay, so with this supposed to be a wait. Okay, good. So now if we do not provide any name, we keep the default name. So what else? We have a description too. Let's do the same for the description. So description, but the price is not what we're going to do the same right now. So let's copy this. We can copy this and then we change this to description, right? So let's change this to description and we're going to say description, and then here we're going to see that description, and then it's going to be description. So description. So what we are trying to do is that if the user refuses to enter a name or keep the default one, because this is update, so before we can update a product, there's supposed to be a product already. So the information that a product carries, we should use that. But let's do this for price is number is different, right? But we can keep it like this. But if we want, we can also say that keep the default. Let's make it more something like this. We say that it's equal to default, right? So it's equal to default, something like this. So if we keep on the default, we keep on the default stuff, right? Okay, good. So when we keep on the default for the price here, we want to initiate this update at, so that we will get the update. So when we are done, we save this into the database. So we say that await, we then have to bring that await, and then we save the changes. So the changes that the user have put in there, and now we want to return something. So we want to return a new API response and tell the user that, okay, you have updated the product successful, and then give the information back to the user. So basically this is it, right? So we are checking that if the user refuses to enter something, we keep on the default update, and then after everything we return something nice to them. So this is very easy, and this is very important when you are working with APIs. You need to check that one. So now, what about delete? So if you want to delete, to first of all we need to have the ID. So let's go to the database as we always do. We go to the database, and we always want to use the first default sync. I like that first default. Okay, first default sync instead. Okay, so we go to the database, and then we check if the ID that the user have entered is is it in the database? So do we have it? That is the whole logic of this. The ID that the user have entered, is it something we have in our database? If we do not have it, right, if it is not there, we then respond, give you error, right? So let's make this one async, and let's try to make this one await, something like this. So if it is not there, we are giving you, if it is none, then we call our API respond, and then we say that everything is false, and then we give you a message that the product, it's not found. But for the API respond, I'm doing it this way. You can decide to do it and how you want it. You can have only the message, right? Yeah. So if the product they are trying to enter then exists, what is this is that we go to the database, right? So let's go to the database, and then it say that okay, we want to remove, because now the product exists, so we want to remove. When we remove from our database, we save the changes. So we then save the changes. When we save the changes, then we return a message and saying that your product is being deleted successfully. So this is basically it. The logic we have here is that we go to the database, and then what we are saying is that okay, remove it, right? When we remove it, save the changes, and then you see we have a boolean, and then we say that okay, true, and then we give you that results. Okay, very easy. So now we have this thing set it up, but we are not done yet. So the next thing for us to do is let's go to our program.cs. But before we go to our program.cs, let's go and create our controllers. So before we create our controller, let's go and create our validators, right? So that we can then work with. So the name, it depends on how you want to name it. So the first validator that we want to validate is that in this API we are building, in a situation where the user is going to enter something is when they want to create an update. So the validation that we are going to have is basically create and update validation. Very easy. So it depends on how you want to validate most of the stuff, but I think that is where we want to validate. So if you are creating something, you are going to enter something, we want to check if that is what we want to have in our database. That is it. So we first need to have create product request validator. So when you are creating a product, this is the validation we are going to check. So the Fluent package comes with something we call the abstraction validator, and it accepts a certain kind of. So this one we are going to use is that now this the construct. The construct is what the user is going to enter, and that is what we want to check, right? So that is what we want to check. So create product request is what the user is going to enter when they create the product, and that is what we want to write the validation for. So let's go ahead and then trying to also bring this one very easy like that. And now let's go and then say that public create. Okay, good. This validation is good. So this is basically a basic validation, but I think I'll stick with what the Copilot have suggested. It's very easy. So we don't want it to be empty. When it's empty, we say required, right? So it means that you cannot create a product without providing a value, right? So when one of these things is missing, then it means that you can't go ahead and create all these things, right? Yeah. So that is of that thing. So the next thing that we'd like to do is that we want to do the same for update. So if you want to update too, we're also going to have a validation checking that you have provided all the required property or the structure or the format that we want. So I have this class which I'm going to call it, and it's the same. So we bring in the abstract validator from the Fluent package, and then we bring in our DTO or our construct, which is the update construct. We then bring that one. So what we're going to do is that very easy is that we're then going to do the same, but this time around we are going to make sure that this is what we have, right? So we have name, we have description, right? Price is not something we are going to add, right? Because price can be at a 0, and that is something that we don't want to do. So let's do that, but you can go ahead and do that, but I prefer to do it this way. So now we have this thing to also set up. So let's go and create our exception. So the idea of a global exception is basically helping us to catch exception globally. So let's go to our exception in our infrastructure section here and create a class called global exceptional handler. So a class called global exceptional handler, and this exceptional handler, this was introduced in .NET 8, and the fun part is that it has a certain interface called iExceptional handler. So I'm going to bring in iExceptional handler, which implement a certain method, right? So it implements a value task and try handle sync. So let's bring this interface. So let's go and see that we want to basically implement this interface. So this interface is what is going to handle all the global exceptional for us, and this is very easy. So you can decide to write how you want your global exceptional handler to be, but for me, I have a global exceptional handler I use on most of my projects, right? And I'm going to make this code available for you, but we can also go ahead and then write it ourselves, you know, so we don't need to bring in a code. Let's write it and learn how to do that. So the first thing is that we're going to log something, right? So we need to make sure that we have iLogger here working for us. So because we want to check if something happens, we want to log, and then we're going to say that create a constructor. So we have our iLogger here now. So this is good. This is good. So we have our iExceptional handler, and then we have our iLogger, which we have added to the constructor. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that the iLogger we bring here is using the so let's go and bring the iLogger. The iLogger we bring is wrong. So let's go and see that we want to use this as a global exceptional handler for the iLogger. Okay, good. So we want it to this way, and then we're going to generate a constructor like this for it. So the first thing we do is that we log in. If there is an error, we probably want to say that log error. So we want to log error, and what we want to log is we want to log in exception. So we want to log exception. So we want to log in exception and then exception message, right? So that is one thing that we want to do. So for now, let's go and see that, okay, this is what we want to log right at the top. And you remember we created an API error response. So we have error response here, which is going to represent how the error structure is supposed to be. So let's go ahead and see that, okay, now we have this. We're going to create a new error response. So we're going to create a new error response, and we don't want to hard code it everything. We want to make sure that everything is coming from what we wanted, right? So with that, let's do it like this way. I have this here. So we want a new error response, and then we want the message that is coming from the exception, and then we want the status code too, and then everything we don't want to get the error type too. So if not, we want the default to be error okay. So that is it. So when we get that, we then call HTTP context like this, and then we say status code is equal to error status code, and then we do it like this, and then later on is a boolean, so we're going to return true. So the next thing we want to do is that we're going to say that await HTTP context write sync, okay, error response, okay, cancel token, and then we do that. Okay, good. So this is good. We can probably also leave this and have a cancel token like that. Okay, so and then we return true. Okay, good. So this is basically our global exceptional handler. You can go ahead and play around with it and configure it to suit your need or how you want it to be, but this is basically our global exceptional handler, and this is how I want it. Then this is a basic stuff. You can go ahead and add more stuff to it. So the next thing that we want to do is that now we have created all this everything that we need to create except the controller where we will do our stuff, but we need to go ahead and then try to register all these services in our program.cs, right? So one thing that I'm going to add, we already have this here, is something we call program details, right? And the program details normally is also come from the exceptional handler, right, which help us to give the details of the exception. So let's go to builder service and builder service dot add program details, something like this. So we have this program details, and the next thing is that we're going to then add our global exceptional handler. So service here, and then we're going to say that add exceptional handler, right? So add exceptional handler, and then inside this here, so add exceptional handler, and we're going to bring our global exceptional handler. So we have global exceptional handler, which is coming from exception, and then we do it like this. So this is going to help us to catch error whatever anytime the error happens. But there is one thing that we need to do. We need to also register a certain middleware which is going to help us. So we're going to say use exceptional handler. So use exceptional handler here too. Okay, good. So now we are done with our exception section. The next thing we need to do is trying to also register our validators, right? So try to register our validators. Let's go down here and see that register our validators, right? Our validators. So this is our validators. So first of all, we need to bring in our validator that we have, which we have created two validators. So we're going to say that let me bring all of them, so that this is a two validator that we created, which is create okay, let's import this. So this is the two validator that we created, which is creates product request validator and update product request validator. So oh, what is happening? So let's hit Alt here and check. Okay, so let's do it our thing manually. So service, right? Let's add them as a scope. So let's go and see that add scope. So let's add them that scope. Okay, good. And let's try to import them. Let's import the fluent. Let's import this from our construct, and then this is giving us an error because of what? Let's go back. Okay, so let's redo this more to 150 to check how it look like. So the error we are getting is that namespace of create product request validator does not exist. So it means that this name does not exist. Let's copy the name from here and then put it in. So let's copy the name here, put it in. Now we get our actual name. Okay, and then let's register the round. So now we have our validators here working for us. The next thing that we need to do is that register our AutoMapper too. So we're going to say that register our register AutoMapper, right? So register AutoMapper is also going to be very easy. So we say that builder, okay, type of profile, and I'm going to bring this type of profile here, and then we're going to also add a summary to this. Okay, good. So now AutoMapper 2 is also registered here, and the next thing we need to do is also register our service. So register our service, which is our product iService and then our product service class. So let's register those ones too. So okay, now we have all of them here. So we need to also register our database, right? Register our database, right? Okay, DB context. And DB context is something that you can basically work on, but it's easy. I have my configuration how I do it. It's very easy. So this is how I do it. I have this, and you remember we installed this SQL Server from with the entity framework, which is a kind of provider that will help us to get a certain connection with our local database. So we have this one here right now, and what we are going to do is that we are going to do something that we call connection string, right? Connection string is where our database is located, right? So the connection string, yours might be different based on your configuration if you have your SQL database installed. So I'm going to do it on the development. So I'm going to paste my connection string, which I have configured, and I'm going to name this to production, right? Okay, so production, something like this. So this is the production is going to be the database name. We can then say that product, right? Because it's going to be product. Let's something like this will be the database name. We want it to be like this. Product test, so that it will be unique production. DB. So this is going to be the database name in our SQL Server. Okay, good. So now we have set up everything. What left is we go into the database, our controller, and then we expose what we have to the user. So we're going to say that we have a product controller. We're going to create a new controller. So let's go and add a new controller called a product controller. So we have a product controller, and the first thing is that we're going to use controller base. So something like this, and we import the MVC coming up, and then in here we want to tell ASP.NET Core that this is a controller based stuff, right? So we bring in the controller attributes at the top, and here we need to make sure that we bring in our validators and our service, right? So to do that, the first thing we need is that we need to go and see that private read, and then we bring our service. And then the next thing is that we are not going to bring AutoMapper here. We have already used it. So IDB service, is it what we created here? Okay, I product service. So how I spell the product, this is not how we should do it. So let's go here to and change this to a better spelling. So product, okay, I product service. Okay, so let's go back. There is a way to do this. I'm not going to do it manually, so let's rename it from here, and Visual Studio will take care of that. So let's do this and make sure that, okay, we want to have this name, and now when we go here, we'll be able to import it, right? Okay, now we have the correct spellings. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is to bring in the validators, right? So so we say validators. Okay, let's go and say private read only. So read only. We're going to say I validator from the Fluent package, right? I validator validator. Okay, so I validator coming up. Okay, so let me bring this importation here that I have. So this is the importation we need to have, and this is product request. So let's go and bring our construct here. So this is create product request. Create product request. Oh. So let's say shift and this. So let's go. Oh, so create a product request is what we need to bring. So let's bring in the create product request. Create product request. It's not product request validator. So let's go to our constructs here and let's go and bring this to the controller. So basically this is what we have. Create this. Let's import that. So we are saying that create should not be found. Are you missing? But this is okay. We need to add T to this. And then let's go and then bring the update to from our construct. So that okay, so update product request to be easier for us to copy and paste. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so now we have set up all this, and the next thing that we need to do is to generate a constructor for all this. So let's generate a constructor, and we have a constructor for this. So we are going to work with this to do all the validations that we have. So the first thing is that we want to create a product. So let's bring our endpoint. We want to create a product, which is going to be very easy. So we create a product. So we see that public create a product. So the API is saying that okay, good, this is what we want. We are saying that okay, create a product is going to be a form query. Okay, and then we see that create a product, and then see that var validate. So we check in to see that whatever you are putting in is valid, which our validation class is going to take care of that. So if it is valid, if it is not valid, we return an error from the Fluent class package, right? And then if everything is okay, we then give you the product that you created by using the service method that we have created, which is also talking to the database. So now we want to go and get a product. So the next thing we want to do when we create a product, we get product, right? So this is going to be product. We want to get product. So with that, we're going to say we have public async get product. So okay, this is also going to get all products from the database. So we want to get a product also by ID. So we want to get it by ID, and it's the same thing. We're going to see that public async. Okay, the Copilot suggested. Okay, good. This is what also we want. So we go through the service, right? And then we pass in the ID and return okay. We don't need to do any hard-coded work here because we have already have our business logic in our service, right? This is one thing I love about controller-based API structure. You have a service which is taking care of all your business logic. Then you have a controller just to expose the service and everything to the user, right? So this is very easy. So the next thing we need to do is what? When we get by, we can update, right? So the update is also the same. So updates is very easy, like what we have here. So the same one, that is what the Copilot is giving to us. So var validate resource, and then we also validate and say return a bad request. So now we just have to delete, which is very easy. So delete, and then we delete when we pass in the ID. We call that service to, and then we delete. So basically this is our controller that we have, and now let's run application, see if there is no error. Okay, so it's trying to build, it's building complete. Let's go to here, let's refresh, and then boom, we get our API here. By now we cannot do anything, so you can see that this is what we do for request, and this is our DTOs, and this is why we want to get a product. We do this, we want to update, we do this. Okay, so now we doing migration. We need to talk to the database, so we need to create a migration, and then we talk to the database and say that okay, this is what we have, which is our model. Going to talk to the database, and then we'll be able to create response. We'll be able to create a product and get response and all that. So now the only thing that we need to do is to stop the application and make sure that we are going to have valid migrations. So let's go and then to our terminal here, and let's go and perform a migration and then update that to the database. So let's check where we are. Okay, so let's list, and then let's see into the application that we have here. Let's list. Okay, good. So now we can go ahead and say .NET, and I want to create .NET EF. So we are using the EF call to create a migration. So add a migration, and this is a simple command, right? .NET EF call migration, add my initial. So the last one will be the name of the migration, which I'm calling it initial migration because this is our first migration. So let's create a migration, and let's see if our migration is going to be successful. So now we are creating a migration here, and don't mind the error. Okay, the warning, the EF code I have is different from .NET, but it's cool. And now we have this migration. Let's go and say that .NET update, .NET EF call EF database update. Okay, this is what we want to have, and this will update the migration to our database, the SQL database we have based on the connection string that we have provided. And you can see now everything is successful. So we can then run the application. And what we are going to do is that we are going to then refresh this. Boom. And now let's see if we want to get a product. Let's see what we get, whether we get an error. So if our global error is working, let's try if there is an error here in the code. Let's execute, and then you see that we are getting this. It means that no product found here. So this is good. Everything is success, right? Success is false. This shouldn't be false, right? So let's go to the code and change it. Success supposed to be true, but it's supposed to give us, that is the negative side when Copilot is suggesting things for you, right? Okay, so now this shouldn't be false, right? This should be true. It means that it's success, but there is no product in the database, right? Okay, so let's run the application again, and let's go to here. Let's refresh the page. Boom, boom. So now let's get product, which we know that we don't have any products inside. So now it's true, but the data is an empty array, right? So we don't have any data in here. Okay, good. So now we want to create a product. We want to create the first product, and let's make the price 0 like this, right? So when the price is 0, let's execute, and then you see that we are getting an error. The error we are getting is that this is coming from our validation, and then you see that price is required. So it means that price is required. So we need to make sure that we add price, because here price is 0, and then based on our validation we are saying the price shouldn't be 0, right? Okay, good. So let's go ahead and see that okay, this is 20. So it means that our validation tool is working. So let's go ahead and say that, okay, let's zoom in this one. So you can see the error from here is price is required, and this error is coming from the Fluent library, right? Okay, good. Let's go and hit create successfully. So now we have been able to create a product like this, and everything is successful. So this is the product, and you can see created at, updated at. What we decided to do is that created at and updated at is just one at, yeah. And then you see the message is coming, success is true, and then product is successful created. So now let's go and try to get all the product we have in our database. So get product, right? Let's execute this, and then this give us this is the product we have. Okay, so now it means that we can create a product and then we can get a product from the database. It's working. So let's copy this ID here. Let's copy it, and then say that we want to get a product by ID. So we want to get a product by ID. Let's paste this ID here. Let's execute. No, nice, it's working too. So now we can get product by ID. So when we fetch that one too, you know, we get this structure is basically coming from our API response. And as I said, you can structure it the way you want, but this is how we want it. We decided to do it, so you can structure it more production way. Okay, good. So now it means that we can go ahead and then get product, and then also get product by ID is working. So let's put product, and let's go ahead and say that, okay, now we don't want to we want to leave this, but let's go and see that test, and let's list the price 0 and see that what that logic that we wrote is working. So test. Now when we check here, this is put, you can see that the price is 20, and we updating it. We are not going to add any price, right? We updating it. So let's say, let's make this a test name, right? So let's say test name. So this happens to be test name. Okay, test name, and let's see test name. Test name for this product. It doesn't matter. Let's write something in there, because right now this is why we have everything as a string, right? The name is a string, description is string, right? Price is 0, but here we are not going to add any price. And let's see that if our logic that we have is going to work. Let's execute this. So now we have here, we updated this product, and then we decided not to add any price, but the response we are getting, still the price is 0. This name is updated, test name. The description is worked, right? And then updated at is also here. So what we can do is that, you see, we also have created at, updated at here. We can go to our service and see that when we update, what do we do? So updated, and this is what we have, right? We only have response. So this is coming from our construct. Let's check our construct, because we only want to have updated at. So let's delete this, right, and have updated at. That is the only thing we want to have. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, let's go and refresh this. So now let's get product. Let's go ahead and get product. Our application is working. Okay, so now this is the product we have here, and okay, this is updated at. Okay, so it means that the product response is what we are using for the update. So we are making a mistake, but it doesn't matter. Let's leave it like that. But in a normal sense, we should have update only on the update section here, where we only update when we updated at should come, right? But it's okay, we can leave it like that, but you can change it, you can remove that one from there. So The next thing is that now let's go and create a new product and delete it. So let's go and say that post, and then we want the price here to be 1. Let's put the price 1 and execute it. So now this product is created, the data, everything is cool. When we get this product, so get product, when we get this product, now we have 2 products here in our database. This is good. So we want to delete one of them, which is the one without name, which is the string one, like this. We can copy this, and then when we come to delete, let's see, we then paste in, we try, and then we're going to paste in like this, and then we hit delete, and now we are getting error. The response is here, and then say true, and then say that product deleted successfully. So this is an API response that we have set in the code. So let's go back and get all products and see. When we execute this, now we have only 1 product. So thank you for watching, and this is how you work with ASP.NET Core 9. And then we have, in this video, we learn how to set up your ASP.NET Core application, how to bring back Swagger, how to set up DB contest, how to set up Fluent library, and how to do auto mapping and do the validation and create your DB contest. So this code is going to be available on GitHub. So I will leave the link in the description. You can check, and then you can then pick the code, use that one as a reference, and also you can add more functionality to it. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and share this content with others. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.